This episode of Chat Grapple and Cheap Pops is brought to you by zenpop.jp. Use the link in our description for $5 off your next order by using the code GRAPPLE.
This episode is also brought to you in partnership with thebubblepanda.com. Bubble tea at home using their boxes that you can get off their website from bubblepanda.com. Welcome, everyone, to another very special interview episode of Chat Grapple and Cheap Pops podcast. I am Chris Dredd, here with my main man, Jay Bizzle. What's happening, Jay? You good, bruv?
As always, we are all good. And let's just say every time we say we're going to hit a review up, someone else comes down the road.
That's right.
And here we are again, about to hit you up with another super fun interview. Can't wait for everyone to hear it. We just love WCW, so we can't help ourselves.
We love it, bruv. The WCW, we love it.
That's right. And without further ado, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Let's get to it.
Welcome, everyone, to another very special episode of Chat Grapple and Cheap Pops podcast. I am Chris Dredd, here with my main man, JB. And today we've got a phenomenal guest, someone who is iconic and definitely brings out some memories of WCW. It is the amazing Allan KWEE Funk. Thanks for joining us, Allan.
Yeah, man. It's good to be here, man.
So it's great to have
you
on.
You got your Lucha Libre mask or shirt on there. I see Blue Demon in there.
Yeah, man, this is our Chat Grapple and Cheap Pops podcast logo on the old merch. We I
got you.
Try and plug that shit whenever we can. We've even got the
I'm
mugs.
Rocking something a little different.
Oh yeah, Jordan's.
Nice. Got the old WCW Nitro shirt on.
Man, we are absolute suckers for WCW.
Okay.
We as kids in the UK, we used to get a little bit of it on TV. We used to get the Saturday nights. We used to get bits and bobs. We used to get it on TNT, the Nitros, stuff like that. So, for us, we've had a few guys on from WCW. We've had Sonny Ono. We've just recently had Das Wunderkind, Alex Wright on.
Oh, yeah. Alex, great dude.
Oh, he's a really nice guy, man. It's, and we just love WCW, man. So to have you on, because you were there literally when it fucking fell to shit,
Yeah, right.
And it's incredible because the last pay-per-view of WCW, it was Greed, the Greed pay-per-view.
Yeah, Jacksonville, Florida, yeah.
We reviewed that pay-per-view because this is what we do on the channel as well. So we review old pay-per-views and we watch them. And dude, your match at the beginning with Jason Jett fucking blew the roof off the place. To think it was the last pay-per-view is incredible.
Yeah, we weren't even booked on that show. I just happened to show up there because I was down in Florida, hanging out with some baseball players that I was friends with and catching out some spring training games with Ming and some of the boys. Happened to swing by there. Because we were going to go to Nitro that Monday anyway. So, but I always showed up the arena with my gear and stuff. You never knew it was going to happen. So, while we were walking around that day, they asked me if I wanted to work a match on a pay-per-view. I said, "Fuck yeah, I'll work whoever you fucking want me to work." So they said, "How about Jason Jett?" They wanted me to put him over. I said, "Shit." And if you ever followed my WCW career, I didn't have any trouble putting somebody over.
Yeah.
So, as long as you work together and have a good match, dude, I could give two shits whether I ever won or lost, you know what I mean? But we set the tone for that night for sure, man. I appreciate you that compliment you give us on that match because we had like 15 minutes, bro. We tore the house down. All the guys in the back afterwards were saying, "Shit, man, we don't want to follow that match." We set the tone for the pay-per-view, so I was kind of proud of that match.
It was cool, man. That crossbody to the outside when he moved out the way looked fucking great, man.
Yeah, we Jason Jett, dude, he was a great talent, man. And I guess some people thought he trained in the power plant a little bit, but he never did. But man, he had a real short career in WCW, almost as short as mine. But man, that kid was incredible. He could work with anybody. He could do anything you wanted to do. And when you worked him, it brought out the best in you. And hopefully, I brought out the best in him. And if you watch that match, and so a lot of people still tell me this day, man, that was one of their favorite matches on that pay-per-view. And they thought the rest of the pay-per-view was kind of mediocre compared to that match. That makes me feel good,
From what I can remember, yeah, it doesn't get much better than the opener at Greed. Like that was the match, and then for us watching it progressively just got a little bit worse each time. Like the rest of the show.
You guys didn't like the cruiserweight tag match on that card?
Oh hell yeah!
That was good.
Yeah.
I mean, because we've been chatting with Sam Roman, Kid Romeo.
Yeah. Good dude, man. Good dude.
Hoping to get him on. And, it's one of those ones where at that time in WCW, it fucking sucks, man, because, it looked like there was a load of guys there at that time, forget about, the fucking NWO and, that kind of shit that was happening, even the main event and Steiner and stuff like that, or whoever, there was a group of guys coming through there, the Eli Skippers and the AJ Styles and and, the Jason Jetts and stuff, Sam Roman, all those guys coming through. The wrestling was pretty good on the, I say, the mid card or however you want to fucking call it, but the wrestling was pretty good. And to think that WCW ended so abruptly, it kind of sucked, man.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I can say about the, me and Eli Skipper wrestled on some, for the cruiserweight title a couple times on, Fall Brawl was one of the shows we always, I call them curtain jerkers. We were always first match. Now, if and me and Eli Skipper wrestled semi-main event on a Nitro before. So, if you're going to have a pay-per-view, you're going to have two guys that fucking blow the house down and they bust their ass every fucking match. Why don't you put them higher in the card?
Yeah.
And build it up a little more. That was one thing WCW always dropped the ball. They let us have our matches, but they never give us no direction. They just said, here, have your shitty little match. Basically how they, they didn't say it in so many words, but they're like, you guys are going to fill the card in, we got to worry about the Steiners, which, I love Rick and Scott Steiner. Don't get me wrong. Two good guys. But some of the upper talent, man, they just, I guess they were established and they didn't give a shit. They just did whatever, and some of their matches looked like shit, if you ask me. And, I'll tell them that to their face. And, all of us younger guys, including myself, the Natural Born Thrillers, all the guys in that group, Sean O'Hare, Chuck Palumbo, Mark Jindrak, Rick Cornell, Sam Roman, Eli Skipper, all of us, dude, from the power plant. We went out there and bust our asses every match, man. We didn't go out there and one night, and even if we felt like shit, we all wrestled with fucking injuries and broken fingers and, shit. And, and I think we lit a fire up under a lot of the other guys' asses that were on that roster because, they were like, fuck, we can't work with you guys cardio-wise. You guys will blow us up. They knew we were going to fucking, go out there and do 120%. So some of the guys were actually afraid to work with us in the ring because they thought we'd blow them up and they'd look like shit.
You mentioned the power plant and how many people like came through and were working from the power plant at that time, like in WCW. Was it a tight-knit group like that sort of came up at the time?
Oh, dude, yeah, we were all, we traveled together. We hung out together. We shared rooms, shared rent-a-cars, different times, depending on what the situation was. Some of us, we all were together at one point in time, or, there'd be two or three of us on the road this week, and then next week there'd be two or three more of us. So we always, even if we weren't traveling with, a couple of the guys every week, every couple of weeks we'd hook up and, we were always real close. So that, when you share a bond like that, when you went through stuff, the torture and the horror that we went through sometimes in a power plant, it brings you closer together as a group.
There's a British journalist called Louie Theroux. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Oh yeah, Louie Theroux. Yeah.
He went to the power plant and he got blown up by Sarge, and he was
he puked at least twice that day. I was there. We had him on the floor saying I'm a dying cockroach, and we beat the shit out of that guy. I guarantee he would never want to do that shit again.
But the thing is as well, though, you know, when you have outsiders coming in to wrestling, like we're wrestling fans and we've also trained in wrestling, Jordan and myself. So we know what it's like to fucking take a bump, to take a chop, to even take a slam, you know, even taking a suplex and stuff. If you don't take it correctly, man, you fucked. You know, so when these guys come in and they kind of make a mockery of wrestling, you've got to chop the shit out of them, and you have to go in. It's protecting the business, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, man, when we were down at the power plant, we didn't have to protect the business, because let me tell you something. Our warm up, like I'll compare this to the damn Tough Enough in WWE.
Yeah.
Our warm up was what those guys went through, and they're dying. Those guys wouldn't have fucking lasted 5 minutes in a power plant. I'm not saying that because I was in there. I'm saying it because it's 120% the truth. And if Sarge Sarge went down to that Deep South with that Tough Enough where Bill DeMott was doing it. They wanted Sarge to do that. He walked in there and started, you know, he looked around, people were telling him this and that, and they looked at Sarge and they're like, you can't act like that, Sarge. You got, you know, and Sarge's like, fuck you, I'm leaving. He fucking left, you know, because, dude, let me tell you something. And Sarge is an old school guy. And it's not really about protecting the business. It's about you earning your fucking right to be there.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. You know, you didn't just walk in the power plant and get invited in there to train. You fucking earned your spot. Trust me.
So how did it come around that you kind of start? Were you a wrestling fan as a kid, or how did it come about you getting into the business?
Yeah. Well, I'm from a small town in Alliance, Ohio. Grew up, you know, pretty much, you know, idolizing Hulk Hogan. You know, I first saw him when I watched a movie with my brother and his family. We watched Rocky III, and I was like, holy shit, this dude is awesome. So then I started watching wrestling and watching him, and I was like, I want to be like this guy when I grew up, you know, and I was young. So, you know, just growing up, everybody I went to high school with, you know, they knew me as, you know, they basically, my nickname was Hulk Hogan, because that's all I fucking wore, Hulk Hogan t-shirts, and I wore a fucking, you know, those shitty ass cheapy foam fucking weightlift or championship belts that the WWE used to sell. I had I wore that to school and shit. I wore that to graduation, you know, you know, that's how everybody knew me. I had a 65 Plymouth Valiant red. I spray painted Hulkamania on both sides of the car.
Wow.
You know, I drove that shit to school, and you know, everybody thought I was a fucking nutcase. But you know, and that's what it takes to get in the wrestling business. You got to have that mentality, you know. And I just always knew I wanted to do that. So you know, after seeing shit on the power plant, me and Chuck Palumbo talked about this. You know, we saw the same ad, you know, where the big boys play or whatever, and come down and try out. And you know, I paid my $250, and I knew I was going to make it. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind. And if you told me I wasn't, you know, I would have had words with you, or we probably would have fought, because I knew I was going to make it. And I know how mentally strong I am. I know how physically tough I am. And there wasn't no one denying me that 3-day tryout. And out of 25 guys, I was the only guy that made it through there.
I mean, that is the stories that you hear about the power plant, that basically a whole heap of guys would go down there, but very few would really make it through, because you have to be a tough son of a bitch to get through it.
Oh, let me tell you something, bro. That was literally the worst 3 days of my life. Afterwards, you know, I flew down from Ohio to Atlanta. When I got back, I couldn't even get out of bed hardly after the first day of tryouts. And I tell the story all the time. I literally would fall out of the bed, crawl to the bathroom. I couldn't even fucking walk. I'd cramp up so bad. I tied a towel onto the doorknob in the bathroom, and I'd pull myself up and sit on the shitter. I'd have to pull myself off with the towel to get off the shitter. And I'm like, I don't know how the fuck I'm going to make it another 8 hours of this shit. That was the first day, you know? So I said, I got 2 more days of this shit, man. And then by the third day, man, I was ready to fucking die. I ain't kidding you. I made it through the tryout. The next day, getting on the air, it was fucking hell. Getting to the airport, walking through the damn, just trying to get on the airplane was a fucking task, because I kept cramping up. I'd walk 10 steps and fucking almost freeze up. My legs would cramp up on me, and I, you know, I couldn't. There was nothing you could do about it. You were just that beat up.
Nuts.
You started doing things on WCW Saturday Night. Would you compare Saturday Night now to sort of like what NXT is?
I don't know if it's similar. I wouldn't really compare it to, because you know they got their own show, and they promote all these guys a lot different than the Saturday Night show was promoted. The Saturday Night show really, you know what, it was one of them shows where when I grew up, I loved watching it, because you got to see guys that you didn't really see too much of, and you pretty much knew who was going to win the matches. But now when we started, you had a bunch of us from the power plant wrestling each other. So you kind of really didn't know who was going to win, because one week I'd win, and next week somebody else would win. And it kind of made it cool because, it give all the power plant guys a platform to wrestle, and they were sending us to all the shows. And we only recorded that once. It was every other Wednesday. So you'd sometimes have 2 matches, so you could be on 2 Saturdays in a row. So, a lot of us would wrestle 2 matches every Wednesday night, so we could get on the show every week. And that's what we wanted to do, because we wanted to be on every show,
It's amazing. I remember the Saturday nights. We used to get those in the UK. That's one of the few bits that we could see. So coming into the business then, so you were in the power plant. How did it come around you getting a contract and actually getting in?
Yeah, well, after the 3-day tryout, then you sit down with Jody Hamilton, which was the assassin. He just passed away recently, so rest in peace, Jody. But so you'd get called into Jody's office after your 3-day tryout, and if you made it, they'd take you in the office and talk to you a little bit and decide whether they wanted you to come down, which you had to pay $3,000 for 6 months of the training after the $250 for the 3-day tryout. So fortunately, I didn't have to pay that, because once I got in there, and Sarge, once I went through my tryout, me and Sarge kind of hit it off, and he knew I was kind of like him, an old school tough bastard. And, there wasn't nothing you could do to hurt me. There wasn't nothing you could do to, hurt my feelings or whatever. So, I just rolled with the punches, did whatever I was supposed to do, and more, and that's how I got a lot of respect from a lot of guys, including Paul Orndorff. Paul Orndorff loved me because I had intensity, and, he knew I wasn't a pussy, and I had a great body. And Paul Orndorff loved that kind of shit. So they invited me down there for 6 months. And initially I was supposed to pay this $3,000. Well, luckily, when Paul Orndorff took over about that time from Sarge and Jody Hamilton, and Jody kind of got pushed to the back burner, which was kind of tough, because, we all like Jody, and it was kind of rough watching him kind of be on the outside, and he really didn't like that. So once Paul took over, he had us wrestle. He teamed us all up and said, you're going to be wrestling this guy, or you guys are going to be wrestling a tag team, or this and that. So then they had Jimmy Hart, J.J. Dillon, and a bunch of office people come down to the power plant, set up a table, watch us wrestle. And if they liked us, we were invited to the new power plant, which is at the WCW headquarters in Smyrna, Georgia. And then if you got invited, you actually got a contract. So it wasn't too long after I started in there that's why I didn't have to pay the $3,000, because then I wrestled Kid Romeo in a match, and me and Elix Skipper wrestled a match. They loved our matches, they loved us, and they offered us contracts, so then we didn't have to end up paying the $3,000.
Did Sarge get any sort of blowback from the Louie Theroux incident?
You know what? I didn't hear of any. I'm sure, I'm sure some people had something to say about it, but the bottom line is Sarge wasn't going to let that guy. I'll set it up how it started. He saw Sarge, and I believe it was Chattanooga, Tennessee, at a Nitro. So he was talking to Sarge about stuff, and Sarge was pretty busy. He was setting rings up and stuff at the time, and Louie's trying to take up his time. And Sarge is one of those guys. He's no nonsense. He'll answer a question. He'll and move on. You know what I'm saying? And Louie was kind of getting under his skin, because he kept saying certain shit to him. And I don't think the interview that you actually saw on Louie's on that Louie Theroux special, I don't think they had the whole interview on there. I think there was more shit said than actually they showed. So either way, Sarge wasn't too happy with him. And then when he, wanted to come down and train, of course, Sarge is going to say, fuck yeah, bring your fucking little skinny ass down there. We'll fucking beat the shit out of you. And then you'll see that this fucking shit ain't no joke. But the only thing that doesn't do that justice is people, when they see stuff like that, they think it's put on an act, that we're actually doing that to Louie, but it's not. These fucking guys come in there, they sign a release form saying if they get hurt, they can't sue us or whatever. And it was the same shit we went through. So to us, it was like, if you want to come in here and earn your fucking wings, and come in here and earn your wings. If not, fucking puke, crawl your ass back out the fucking door and beat it. We don't give a shit. And that was basically the mentality. So, and I've actually saw a grown man shit their pants in the power plant, crawling for the fucking door. We'd grab him by the fucking feet, pull him back in, and make him crawl to the door again, just to fucking make him do it.
Shit.
So, and that's the way it was down there.
I mean, and wrestling, I mean, that is the old school way of getting people into the business. It is toughening you up and getting to say, this is how it is. If you can't hack it, then you're not going to make it. You're not going to be able to do what is expected of you. Do you think that that those kind of wrestlers are still being kind of created? Do you think that the training style of today is just so far different that the guys, not that they're pussyfied or anything like that, because there are some tough guys in the business. I mean, you watch Walter versus Dragunov in NXT and, they're tough guys. But, what do you reckon, like, compared to nowadays? You think it is a lot easier, would I say? Or,
I would say it's hard to compare then to now. Once the power plant died off, bro, you'll never have another school like it. You'll never. Just because, the whole world, not just the wrestling world, everybody is pussified. Yeah. So, and like I said, if Sarge, if he would have done that tough enough when Bill DeMott got thrown off of there, do you remember that whole deal?
Yeah.
And he didn't do shit. Like we're dumbfounded he got kicked off because they didn't have them guys doing nothing. Like I said, our warm up would probably half of them fuckers would leave. And that's the start of that pussyfying shit. Started with a tough enough. Because these fucking guys act like, oh, I got through tough enough. And we're like, you got through what? A fucking warm up at the power plant? Like, that ain't shit. Like, we're all thinking, fuck, put us on that show and you'll see what the fuck, you're supposed to be doing. And, you'll never see another thing like a power plant ever again. And, there are, like you said, there are some guys that probably still train like that in certain areas, the country or whatever. Because, you still got some older guys, training these guys. And they're not just going to let guys, walk in there and not go through something and, just walk in there and say, oh, yeah, come on in, give me your three. Even though these schools charge money for stuff, some of the old, if I owned a wrestling school, even if you're paying me $3, $4, $5,000 or whatever it was to come to my school, I'd still want you to be able to perform at a certain level and have a little bit of self-respect in yourself that, you could take a few lashings from some of the trainers and then still keep on ticking. Some of these guys probably couldn't do that nowadays.
Have you actually thought about starting a school? We had Alex on and he's got quite a popular and well-respected school in Germany. Have you ever thought about having a wrestling school out?
Yeah, I should have, if I was going to do a school, I should have done that a long time ago. Me and Mike Sanders actually talked about that when, once WCW stuff was over with. I actually looked at a couple of buildings and tried to, work it out and stuff. But problem is I really didn't want to get into it by myself because you kind of need somebody else. Because, I can't just train people all the time by myself and, I get strung out too thin. But, Mike Sanders really wasn't interested in doing it. He was at first. And then, then we end up not, he didn't want to do it. And I really couldn't find anybody else interested in it because they didn't think there was any money in it. But, I mean, who knows? There could have been, or there might not have been. I don't know. But,
we could put a call into Sarge.
What's that?
Put a call into Sarge, maybe.
Well, I probably could have got Sarge. He was actually running a school up North Georgia at one point about that time. So he had his own little deal going on. But, I did think about asking Sarge. But, the problem with me is I'm not like I wouldn't be a good car salesman. And I probably wouldn't be good at opening up a wrestling school because I wouldn't just take somebody's money and train them, even if they couldn't hack it. A lot of these schools, they're not very reputable. They'll just take your money. They tell these kids, oh yeah, we'll train you and we'll take your money. I'm not like that. If I would, I'd have kind of like a 3-day tryout, like the power plant, but it'd be free. And if you couldn't make it, I wouldn't take your money because I wouldn't feel right about it unless I explained that to them and they still wanted to come in there and take a chance. Other than that, I probably would turn down a lot of people, and it probably wouldn't have been a good business venture for me.
I mean, but that speaks a lot to how legit you are, man, because like you say, you don't just want to take people's money and just, even if they can't hack it, just like, oh, there you go, run some ropes and fucking, we'll hit you with some clotheslines and do a bit of chain wrestling and, take some bumps or whatnot. And, you're good. You want to be churning out the same kind of guys that were in the power plant. So,
yeah.
I mean, who was in the power plant with you at that time then? How many guys? Would we know many of them?
Oh, shit, everybody. Yeah. So when I get down to the power plant after I do my 3-day trial, I'm down there training with Elix Skipper, Sam Roman, Mike Sanders, Chuck Palumbo, Mark Jindrak, Johnny the Bull, Johnny Huger, Rick Cornell, the Reno. He was in the Natural Born Thrillers. And then, we'd have guys like Sean Stasiak come in there. We had guys like Putski's son, Scotty Putski. Then we had guys that come down there and train. Goldberg would come in and out of there train sometimes. You had DDP coming in and out of there training. You had, Brian Clark, which was in Chronic. He'd come down there and train a lot with us. Ray Lloyd, Luther Biggs, which was him and Ray were together in a little deal there towards the end of WCW. You had Dusty Rhodes down there, Jimmy Hart, guys. And, all the guys that were in the power plant, man. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I'm probably missing Dale Torberg, which was the Demon. You had his wife, Christy, which was Asia. She was in with like Perry Saturn and all those guys.
Right.
And then we had another girl in there, black chick. Her name was Anne Marie Crooks. She was Midnight. She was with Booker T and Stevie Ray at one point.
Yeah.
And, and the women we had in there, we had Molly Holly, we had Shanna Sproul, which was Daphne every now and then. And then we'd have Crowbar in there a lot of times. Tank Abbott, Don Fry, a bunch of good guys in there, man.
I mean, that is a list as good as any, and it is a shame. I mean, me and Jordan, we talk about it all the time, how WCW, it could have been different. We just, there could have been so much more done with it if someone would have bought it and carried on WCW rather than Vince buying it and kind of just fucking chucking it in the bin. I mean, you were around at that time. I mean, what was it like backstage and what was going on at that time, man? It must have been weird.
Well, it was weird, but at the same time, I'll tell you, when, there was no direction really for my character, nothing. I couldn't really do anything I wanted. They, when they give me my character, they told me, look, if you get any gay chance or homo chance or anything like that, in the fact, anything, you're off TV. So I'm like, well, you fucking guys are setting me up for failure, right? Because I got pretty much a gay character. Well, that's why they always had women with me. And then I never had to worry about those gay chants. And I was a good enough worker that I could kind of work around, being the gay bit, and if I would have started getting any gay chance, I would have just been Angry Allan, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't have really worried too much about the KWEE character. And luckily that's what helped me out. But, it got weird there for a minute. And then I tell you what, when Eric Bischoff came in and he was supposedly buying the company, that was towards the end. So he'd come to the shows, man. He'd start running everything. And this is a story I tell all the time. And I'm trying to get Eric Bischoff on my podcast. So Eric used to, Janie Engel was a lawyer with the WCW and she was going through, helping him work through the, all the legal stuff with buying a company and, taking over everything. So I remember she used to come to the locker room and come get me on these nitros at the arenas. And then she would take me to Eric's office and say, Mr. Bischoff wants to talk to you. And the first time she did that, I'm thinking, fuck, this has never happened to me before. Like, usually they don't fucking tell me shit. So I'm thinking on one hand, this might be good. And then on the other hand, I'm like, what the fuck's he want to see me for? Does he want to fucking fire me tonight? So, I go in his office. The first encounter I had with him was, awesome. We were in Indiana. I believe it was Indiana. I was working Rick Steiner that night. And Bischoff asked me, he's like, hey, Allan, he goes, I need you to put over Steiner real big tonight. Make him look strong. Cause he was at that point where people were kind of thinking his character was a little weak and they wanted to build him up a little bit, which, I got no problem with doing anything in a match as long as both people look good, So, so I worked Rick Steiner that night. I put him over like $1 million, and Bischoff, he was really happy with it. Afterwards, I go in the back. He's standing there. He gives me a big hug and says, dude, that was exactly what I fucking wanted. You did exactly what I needed you to do. He said, I really appreciate it. Thank you for doing me that favor. So then the next week, same thing. He calls me to his office. She comes and gets me. I go in there. He sits me down. And he's like, look, he goes, you're going to be my next big guy. He goes, you're going to be my next big superstar. You're going to make lots of money. You're going to be one of my top guys. He goes, how's that sound to you? I said, Eric, sign me the fuck up. I'm ready to go. Like, I'll do whatever you need to do. And, I kind of thrive under pressure. So I'm like, whatever you need me to do, Eric, you fucking tell me, I'll get it done. He's like, that's what I wanted to hear, So we did that for 3-4 weeks. All of a sudden we're, and this leads down to the last pay-per-view we were talking about earlier at the Greed. So I wasn't even booked on that show. I'm driving down to Florida with one of the office guys from WCW. We're going to see some baseball games and see some of our buddies that played pro baseball. So as we're driving from the games to go to the Greed pay-per-view, well, Kevin Nash calls. he says, hey man, Vince just bought the company. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, I knew Eric was in the middle of buying it. And as far as I knew, it was a done deal. So I'm thinking Vince Russo come back, or like, it didn't register when he said Vince, because I'm thinking Eric and Vince. And he's like, no, Vince fucking McMahon. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what happened to Eric buying the son of a bitch? You know, like, then I'm thinking, well, fuck, I'm fucked now, because I was supposed to be fucking getting a big push now from Eric. And then what the fuck, Vince McMahon comes in and just buys the fucking thing up from under him. Like, I was like, I thought it was a done deal. So that kind of confused me, you know? And then, so then nobody talked about it. I don't think too many people knew at the pay-per-view. So, you know, I didn't say nothing about it because I didn't want to be the guy fucking spilling the beans, because I didn't know how many people knew. And from what I've heard, no one was talking about it. So I was like, fuck, I'm not saying nothing about it. So then we get to the Nitro the next night. Boom, fucking WWE everywhere, dude. We're all looking, going, fuck, this fucking really happened. You know, and it was really weird that night at the Nitro. And, you know, you see Patterson and Briscoe, and you see Shane McMahon, and, you know, you're looking, you're like, fuck, like this is fucking actually happening. It was real weird, and the way it happened, you know, it was fucking crazy.
So sorry, Chris, there's two things I've just picked up on. One, Don Fry training at the power plant, was that ever to get him in the ring, or was it just for cardio and stuff?
No, he was down there. They had they had Tank Abbott from the UFC. They had Don Fry, and I guess they were trying to do angles and stuff. Don never did anything for us on TV as far as I can remember. He was in the power plant training, and they were probably paying him big bucks, and that's why he was down there training. And for whatever reason, they never done anything with him, which is just like everything else. You know, a lot of times they have 1,000 things going on and say they're going to do this, this, and this, and never fucking do any of them. So, there's never ever a rhyme or reason. To me, it was just like normal to see guys like that and then making good money, and all of a sudden never done nothing with them. So, it was just for me, it was just normal. So, but yeah, he used to train down the power plant quite a bit.
And the other thing is, we're gonna have to, make sure Easy gets a copy of this so we can get on the Get Funked podcast.
That's right. Well, Sonny Ono was trying to hook me up with Eric because they're good buddies. So, I still got a lot of good contacts from the wrestling business. So, I've had some good guys on my Get Funk podcast. It's I'll get him on eventually. I'll get him on.
So Sonny's a good guy as well. We had a real good time with Sonny Ono, man.
Oh, Sonny's the best, man. He's a great dude.
So, I mean, even Alex Wright spoke to us, like I say, literally a week or so ago, and he was saying that happened a lot with WCW. You had guys who were being paid big money, but they didn't do shit with them. It was like a lot of people were getting paid fucking big bucks to sit on their ass at home. Like, what was going on?
I can tell you a lot of times, JJ Dillon used to come down to the power plant, and me and Paul were pretty close in the power plant. So I'd either be in his office. I was in his office quite a bit because he always talked to me about different things. And JJ used to walk in there a lot of times, be just me and Paul sitting in there. And then he'd have a list of guys. And he would ask Paul, like, who are these guys? And I would look at it, and I knew some of the guys that were on it. And I'm like, well, this guy here is one of the Villanos. And, so a lot of these Mexican guys were on there. They were paying these guys for months, maybe even years. They're a salary, whatever they were fucking paying them. And $1,000, whatever, and JJ's like, why the fuck are we still paying these guys? They haven't worked for us for like a year, and Paul's like, well, fucking get rid of them. Like, well, and because Paul's, he's a nose nonsense guy. He's like, well, quit fucking paying them, so, and I just, like they had, me and Macho Man were good buddies, and, his brother, I never met, but I can tell you, I do know for sure that he was making about $500,000 a year for a few years. Never did one fucking show. So, well, I mean, and that's another reason why WCW was so fucked up, because you're paying, I'm not saying nothing bad about Leaping Lanny or, Poffo, but
yeah,
it ain't his fault they're paying him $500,000. I do remember he come to one show though, didn't even have his gear. They wanted him to do something. He's like, I didn't bring my gear. Fuck it. So he didn't have to work. And you're making $500,000 a year and you're not fucking doing shit. It's amazing to me, how they did that shit. And I know for a fact, one day you come down there, they had Ric Flair's wife on the fucking, making $300,000 a year, whatever the fuck she was making. She did like one appearance and she was on a contract just because she was Ric Flair's fucking wife.
Mad. That is
fucking nuts.
the wacky world of WCW, man. This is why we love it. And this is why, because we're intrigued with it so much, because we watch what's on the screen. And even when we're reviewing the Greed pay-per-view, we spoke about, we said, look, it seems like some people knew what was happening and some people didn't know. You know,
more people probably didn't know than knew.
Well, man, like, I mean, you knew and you blew the fucking roof off that first match. You know, it was, you know, great stuff.
Well, here's my mentality at that point. I'm thinking, you know, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen now, you know, and I'm not going to not have a good match because, you know, if WWE's watching this, obviously, they just bought the company. They might see that match and say, we need to put these motherfuckers on TV now. They're ready. Of course, that wasn't the case, but that was my mentality going into that. You know what I mean? So, you know, I was going to take every opportunity I could get and show them what I could do. And that's exactly what me and Jason did that night.
Did WWE offer you a deal?
I did get a deal. I actually got a raise, believe it or not. But that's the stipulation was I had to stop whatever the fuck I was doing, move up to Cincinnati, Ohio, and start right back from square one with training at HWA, which was the Heartland Wrestling Association with Les Thatcher. He had a wrestling school up there, and that's where a lot of guys then joined us from the Memphis territory that WWE had. So they condensed the Memphis territory and the OVW territory into the OVW to HWA. So the WCW guys and the WWE guys were in Memphis, went together in Cincinnati, Ohio, which was, you had Umaga and Rosie and Jamal, you know, the Samoan dudes. You had Lance Cade, which was with Murdoch. You had Steve Bradley. We had a bunch of good guys, and I know I'm missing a bunch of guys, but you know, a bunch of guys like that. Then we trained with. Then we trained with like Eddie Guerrero, Brian Adams, D'Lo Brown, Mark Henry, Steve Regal, Dave Taylor. They all came up there, so we all, you know, they were all under contract with WWE at the time. So you know, they're coming down there to work with all of us. Well, the shitty part of that whole deal was, I believe they sent the WCW guys down there that had TV experience and, you know, that were in shape and could go wrestle with all these guys. And then we'd go down to OVW on Sundays, do a TV show with Randy Orton, John Cena, Batista, the Basham Brothers, Rico, you know, a bunch of other guys down there that happen to be top names in WCW, and some still are. They just used us to train these fucking guys. And then as soon as we got them trained, out the fucking shitter, man. Fucking WCW guys went 2 weeks before Christmas. They fired mostly every one of us.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah.
That's fucked, man. You know, but
with no chance of coming back.
Yeah, it's not surprising though, sadly, either. You know, it's shocking but not surprising, to be fair. You know, I mean, the amount of talent you had there. I mean, even we love Steve Regal and Dave Taylor because we're British guys. We've been trained in the British way.
Great dudes, man. I love them guys.
Yeah, you know, they could work.
They're incredible. They still are incredible.
Yeah. So you were quite close with Paul Orndorff then. You know, it's he
used to call me on Saturday mornings and say, hey man, what are you doing? You know, I'd be like, I'm just, you know, hanging around the apartment with a wife or whatever. And he'd always say, well, you want to come over? And he used to have one of his sons over at the power plant on Saturdays and want me to come over there and train with him. So, you know, I was one of the guys that he liked because he always told me I reminded him of him because I was real intense. And sorry, man, got a bug crawling around here.
Okay.
I was real intense. So he liked, you know, to work with me because he always told me I reminded him of him, you know, and I had a good body. I took pride in myself and always wanted to be in good shape. And, you know, he admired that, you know.
I mean, Orndorff was one of the best. And a lot of people would say that if it weren't for Paul Orndorff, you know, Hogan wouldn't have really got the push that he got because Orndorff really helped Hogan get to where he was at one time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you know, Paul was a great heel, man. And, you know, looking back on it when I used to watch him wrestle, and, you know, everybody hated that fucking guy. You know, and he'd always tell me stories how whenever he was in New York City and a lot of big cities, but he said a lot of times he always mentioned New York for whatever reason because it was more intense up there. He couldn't even go to the arena in a rental car because he went to the arena one time, I think it was at Madison Square Garden, and the fucking fans flipped his fucking car over trying to get into the arena. So they used to have to get an ambulance to go to the hotel and pick him up and drive into the fucking arena where they didn't know Paul was in the back of it, so he could actually get in the fucking building.
Man, that's that old school heat, man. That is that.
Oh yeah, dude, that's awesome.
That's crazy. So, talking about you when you were growing up, you were kind of idolized Hulk Hogan, and a lot of times people say that you shouldn't really meet your heroes because sometimes when you meet them, they turn out to be fucking assholes or whatever. Like, how did you get on with Hogan? Did you speak to him much? I mean, he was there quite a bit.
Yeah. You know, the first time I met Hogan was Paul picks a couple of us to do start out of the power plant. We're going to start our first kind of like loop, you know. So we're doing some house show loops. You know, we go down to Florida, loop back up around the Atlanta area, and then we're done. So me, Chuck Palumbo, Sam Roman, and there was a guy in the power plant named Hardbody Harrison. I don't know if you remember that name.
Yeah.
So they pick us four to go on the first loop. So, you know, we're driving around the loop. Well, we get to Columbus, Georgia, and Hogan's at the arena, you know, when I walk in there, and I'm like, oh shit, man, you know, I got to fucking say something to him. You know, I got to say hey to him. So he was out actually with Nick, and Nick was a real small kid at this time. And he was out in the hallway, like playing catch with a little rubber ball, you know? So I walked out there, and I walked up to him and said, hey, Terry, you know, Allan Funk, how you doing? You know, I told him, I said, I'm just out of the power plant. It's our first loop. You know, it's good to meet you. I just want to introduce myself. And he was cool shit, man. He stood there and talked to me for, 5-10 minutes. You know, we kind of made small talk, but, you know, he was real open, and, you know, he was cool. And as far as like, I never got to work with him, obviously, which would have been fucking ridiculous. But, but every time I had an interaction with him in the hallway or, in the locker room or whatever, it was always positive. He was always a cool guy to me.
Well, I mean, you say you didn't get to work with him, and it's not surprising, but you got to work with Goldberg and take the spear of all fucking spears.
Yeah, see? Yeah, well, so I'm glad you said that because, even Bill, Jimmy Yang called me up one day, and he was over in Japan with Bill. And he goes, hey, man, Bill just was talking about you. I said, really? What'd he say? And he goes, well, we're all sitting there eating dinner, and everybody wanted to know what he thought was the best spear of his career was, and he said me. So, hopefully Bill still believes that, because I thought that was pretty awesome myself.
Man, that springboard spear, dude, like, and to be fair, like I'm kind of a small guy, so I was what they called a bump monkey. Yeah. So when we were training, like anyone who wanted to try a move, it was like, yo, Chris, come over here, man. We want to just try this or whatever, So I've taken my fair share of spears from people, and they hurt, man. And you would have hurt yourself big time, I would have said.
Well, Goldberg didn't even want to do that spear. I had to talk him into it because I didn't realize that I was wrestling him that night. And Mike Sanders comes up to me and Chuck Plum was like, dude, you working fucking Goldberg tonight. And I'm like, bullshit. Like, why would fuck would I be working Goldberg, Because up to that point, I'd wrestled, like Jeff Jarrett and stuff and, like Steiner and this and that. But I'm like, why the fuck would they have me working Goldberg? So I walked around where the board, they had a chalkboard set up with all the stuff on it. Like, segment 1, this is whatever. And it said, whatever match it was, and KWEE versus Goldberg. And I was like, fuck, they aren't kidding. I said, this is fucking awesome. So I went looking around for Bill to see if he got to the arena yet. And I actually saw him out by the ring. So I walked up to him and said, hey, Bill, we're working together tonight. He goes, yeah, that's what I hear. And, and I knew Bill from the power plant. So me and Bill were cool. But I always tell people the story, working with Bill and being friends with him are two different things. He was kind of a hard head when it come to working with him. He was really cool guy to hang out with, but to work with him was a little different, because he was Bill Goldberg and he believed he was fucking Bill Goldberg. You know what I mean? So he said, well, what are you thinking about? And I said, can I tell you what I want to do? And I said, you let me know what you think about this. And I said, after you go through the smoke or whatever, and I laid out the whole deal. The whole thing you saw was all my idea. I said, you slide under the ring ropes and I'll fucking start hammering you, kick you, punch you, whatever. And when you feed up, I said, I do the springboard sunset flip. And once you're about the middle of the ring, I'll be kicking you shit. I said, I'll act like I'm going to springboard sunset flip you. You come fucking running and spear me right in midair. He's like, holy fuck. So I said, watch, this is what I'm going to do. So I jumped up and I did it. And I said, you got to get the timing down so you can hit me right at the right moment when I turn around. So we did a couple of them. And he said, no fucking way, bro. He goes, I can't do that shit. And I said, why the fuck can't you? He goes, because I'm going to fucking kill you. And I said, well, who gives a fuck? I said, it's going to be awesome. I said, whenever somebody says, what the best fucking spear you ever had was. I want you to say Allan Funk by far. So he's like, well, let me look at it a couple more times. So we did it. And he goes, nah. He goes, dude, I'll fucking break you in half. He said, there's no fucking way. I said, no. I said, we got to fucking do it, Bill. I said, come on, man. I said, you train with the power play. I'm not a fucking pussy. I said, if I get hurt, I get fucking hurt. It's part of the fucking business. I said, it's going to look fucking phenomenal. So we did a couple more times and then he finally agreed to it. And I'm pretty sure he was pretty happy with agreeing to it because after we got done, he's like, holy fuck, bro, that shit was fucking ridiculous. I go back to he had his own private little locker room that night. So I go back there and I remember my ex-wife was with me at the time and we walk into his little private locker room. I knock on a door and we go in there and he gave me a big hug for like 5 fucking minutes. And he goes, dude, that was fucking incredible. He goes, I owe you one. He goes, that was fucking unbelievable. I can't fucking believe we did that. And he was happy as shit. So, he said he owed me a favor, but he never cashed up on the favor. So I'm hoping I can get him on my podcast and tell him that's the favor he owes me.
Man, do it. It's got to be done, man. He owes you. He definitely owes you for that spear, dude. Shit the bed like that. If anyone was shitting
my ribs,
yeah.
He bruised my ribs, which is the gimmick they were trying to do was have him hurt me. So when I wrestle Sanders at the pay-per-view, I'm not 100%. And it actually worked to a T because I actually was hurt.
Legit.
Yeah, it was legit. That was a shoot, kid.
Man.
Now on our Alex Wright show last week, Alex Wright called one particular person a bit of a diva.
I got you.
This
wasn't me, was it?
No.
No, it definitely wasn't you, but it's someone that you have had a little run-in with over the past week or so.
Are you talking about Bag of Dicks? Marcus Bag of Dicks, is that who you're talking about?
Well, the video's been all over the place. I've seen it on Facebook.
So you guys saw the video?
Yeah, I've seen the video.
What'd you think of the video? I fucking made that guy look like such a little bitch.
Like there was the other guy. There was another sort of like bald-headed guy, sort of shouting about being on a podcast, not being on a podcast, getting his
That was his manager. That was his manager.
Oh, was it his manager? Okay.
Well, let me tell you the story on that. The guy that I was talking to, that little fat fuck I called him, he was I was 150% in the wrong because I thought that was the guy that was on the. Well, a couple weeks before, Marcus had an 8-minute rant about me and Mike Sanders, calling me a piece of shit. Next time he saw me, I was going to see the floor. He's going to kick my fucking brains in. So guess what? I knew I was going to see him that Thursday night. So I'm thinking, no better time than Thursday night for you to fucking kick my brains in, you piece of shit. So I confronted him and he didn't have nothing to say about it. He was scared shitless, to be honest with you. And that little fucking fat guy actually stuck up for himself more than Marcus did, which I had more respect for him than I do for Bag of Dicks. So, but I did apologize to that guy because he was not on the podcast. I went over to that guy. I held my hand out and said, look, I said, I am totally in the fucking wrong because I was raised right. If I do something wrong, I admit it.
Yeah.
I went up to him and said, look, dude, I'm a fucking asshole. I said, I am totally 150% wrong. I said, I'm asking you to forgive me. Please accept my apology. And he shook my hand and said, I accept your apology. I said, dude, you're a fucking man. I said, I can respect. I said, Bag of Dicks, I cannot respect. And he goes, so we're cool? And I said, yeah, me and you are cool. I said, I got no problem with you, dude. I said, if anything, you ought to have a problem with me because I was the aggressor and I was a dickhead. I admit it. But I made it right with him. And, if Bagwell wanted to make it right with me, he could either apologize to me or he could have let me beat his fucking ass. And neither one of those happened. So, nothing got settled.
Well, go on, George. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to say, why did he go on an 8-minute rant about you and Mike Sanders?
Okay, so Mike was on my podcast, and me and Mike told this story a million fucking times about Marcus. He was all pilled up and drunk one night. We did an autograph sign at a car dealership several years back. And we told the story again, and we just thought it was a funny story, and we didn't disrespect Marcus in any way. And if Marcus thought I disrespected him, all he had to do was call me. And we could have fucking hashed it out. I probably would apologize to him because that's the kind of guy I am. If you think I wronged you, I'll try to make it up to you. And if I can't, then I'm a dickhead. I'm sorry. So he decides to go on this podcast that he just started and have an 8-minute rant about how big a piece of shit I am and how he's going to whoop my ass and how how he's going to stop my fucking brains in the ground. And I couldn't let it fucking slide. Next time I seen him, I had to say something or I'm a fucking bitch because I'm going to let a guy sit there and talk shit about me and make me. And I got hurt in Finland. He made light of that. Like, I almost got killed in Finland. They told Mike Sanders I was going to die that night. And he's sitting there making light of me, getting my face smashed, and my wife leaving me right after that. And he just, he just dug a hole that he couldn't get out of. And now it's even 10 times worse. He looks like even more of a bitch because he fucking bitched out when I confronted him about it.
Shit, man. So what happened in Finland when they told you were going to die, man?
Well, I was wrestling. Me and Mike Sanders wrestled Elix Skipper and Sonny Sayaki, and that's another power plant guy, Sonny Sayaki.
Yeah.
So Sonny did a split leg moonsault, and Sonny's a big motherfucker. So probably the time Sonny was weighing 240, 250, he fucking come around, fucking hit me with his knee on a split leg moonsault off the top rope. Fucking hit me so hard, my eyeball popped out of my head. I broke both my jaws, my orbital socket, both my eardrums, my jaw, my orbital socket, my nose. My nose was on the left side of my face. I got 6 plates in my face after that. And I was in the hospital that night. Mike went with me. I'm pouring blood out of my ears. Ask anybody in the medical field if someone's bleeding out of the ears, how bad it is. And they're going to tell you it's not very good. So I remember Mike coming in the room, all weird, didn't want to say nothing. Just comes in acting real weird, and then he finally left. Then when I got back to Atlanta 3 weeks, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks in Helsinki, Finland. Had my full facial reconstructive surgery. I'm fine now, still a good looking son of a bitch. So can't take that from me. So then I get back to Atlanta 3 weeks later. Mike says, "Hey, when you get back to Atlanta, I need to, talk with you." So, my ex-wife picked me up from the airport. We meet Mike Sanders out for Mexican food. I couldn't really eat. My jaw was all fucked up still. And, I didn't have any function on my face or nothing. And Mike tells me that night that when he come in the room, when he was acting weird, he said, "You know what the doctor told me?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Go in there and say goodbye to your friend because he's dead. He'll never make it through the night." He said, "He'll be dead by morning." And so Mike kind of, that's why he was acting a little weird because, the doctor just told him his best friend was going to fucking die. You know what I mean?
Fucking hell. The wrestling business can be brutal injury wise. And often it's the innocuous things that you wouldn't think you could do that much damage that actually could almost kill you. It's crazy. It's a real dangerous business. It can be. That's a crazy story. But talking about Bagwell, we've had, out of all the people that we've had on the podcast, he's a name that's come up time and time again, he never wanted to do a job for no one. He's never, he refused to, on Alex Wright's debut as Berlin, he refused to kind of put him over. And to be fair to Alex, like Alex said, look, he was being a bit political. He said, look, I'm not going to shit on Bagwell, basically. I can understand from a character standpoint or whatever why he didn't want to do it. But then we've heard then from Sonny Ono that he didn't want to put over Ernest the Cat Miller, So it's like when someone calls you an asshole multiple times, like maybe you're just an asshole, it's like it's not everybody else.
I can vouch for everybody. He's an asshole, trust me. So, and that's coming from the horse's mouth. He's an asshole. His mom would probably even tell you he's an asshole.
Yeah, we speak about the Judy Bagwell on a pole match quite a bit on here as like tongue in cheek, but it's crazy, man. Like the wrestling business is hard enough without the politics of people kind of screwing you over indirectly. Yeah. We feel bad for you because we feel that you had the look, you had the in-ring ability. It just seems like you were at the right place at the wrong time.
Yeah, I appreciate that though, man. But yeah, you're right about that. Which not only me, myself, but a lot of the power plant guys got overlooked, and some guys went on to, do a little bit more like Chuck Palumbo and, Jindrak and them guys. Luckily they were a little bigger, big, taller wise. Yeah. And, for whatever reason, but they deserved it. I've never looked down on somebody that I trained with or whatever, like Jamie Noble, for example. He was in a power plant. He still has a job in WWE. I just talked to him last week. I couldn't be happier for the guy. You don't find too many guys like that in the wrestling business that actually is still happy for somebody that's still working and making money. Yeah. Which, he's a friend of mine. Why wouldn't I want him to fucking succeed? You know what I mean? So, just because I'm not there, I don't have bad feelings towards guys that are there. But, yeah, did I get overlooked? Did I get treated like shit sometimes? Absolutely. But, did I have a chance? Did I do something that I want to do and I love doing? I got on TV? Absolutely. So I don't have anything to bitch about. You know what I mean? I'm still alive and I'm in good shape. I'm 50 years old, and I just never had it wasn't for lack of hard work. I can tell you that. It just didn't work out.
But I mean, Jamie Noble's a tough son of a bitch as well. We reviewed a show where he had a great match with someone and he won it. When it Jordan, like it was, if he won, he got to take the chick home or something. Who was it?
Oh yeah, with Nydia, or was it the other girl?
It was the other girl. Yeah,
might have been Michelle McCool or something. Maybe I'm thinking.
Yeah, it was, and it was a great match though. Again, he's someone who. Jamie Noble, he wasn't the biggest of guys, but he could fucking work his ass off, man. He was tough, and he brought that legitimacy when he was in the ring. And it's funny you say he was a power plant guy because they churned him out.
Oh, dude, but Jamie was a good worker before he came to the power plant. Let me say that too.
Right.
But he came to the power plant. He was we called him the Canyon Cruiserweights. He was one of the guys that lived in Chris Canyon's house, and there was like 4 or 5 of them, along with Tony Mamaluke, which was in the FBI, and he was in WCW with Disco and Vito Lagrasso and Johnny the Bull. But there was about 4 or 5 of those guys, and they were all excellent workers, dude. But they got deals. They all used to train with Dean Malenko in Florida, and then Chris Canyon ended up meeting them, got them a match at WCW. They got contracts. And, they all lived at Canyon's house because, Canyon said, well, you just move to my house if and then until you find a place down in Atlanta. And it just worked out. He's like, well, why don't you stay here? Fuck it. He had a whole basement that was a separate house with a kitchen and everything downstairs. So they just lived down there. But, yeah, Jamie, if you ever have Jamie Noble on your show, ask him who the toughest guy is. And I bet you, hopefully he says me.
Man, we'd love
He's
that.
Telling people that, I always tell them how tough Allan Funk is. Allan Funk's the toughest son of a bitch in the wrestling business, and nobody gives him credit.
Man, that's someone I've got to get on then. I've got to get on Jamie Noble, try and get him on. But talking about Chris Canyon, I mean, have you seen the Dark Side of the Ring episode? You watched that?
It was kind of fucking weird. Do you agree with me on that? It wasn't like any of the other Dark Side of the Rings.
Yeah, agree.
To me, it was a little... I don't want it was almost unwatchable, especially knowing him. I used to hang out at his house all the time. Now I did know Chris to have a couple temper tantrums. That stuff like that to me I've seen it. So that part of it, I didn't know the extent. I never knew he kicked out Vandenberg's windows and fucking tore his car up. Yeah. But I seen him have a couple temper tantrums at the house over, I have no idea what. But I've seen him act like that. But he was always, to me, Chris was always a cool guy, dude. He had people over his house all the time with parties, and he loved having people over we had pay-per-view parties and just like cookouts and, like more Memorial Day, Labor Day and stuff like that. He had a beach volleyball court in his backyard, a hot tub, a swimming pool, a putting green. And, we all just hung out over there, watched pay-per-views or fucking played sports in the backyard or volleyball and hung out and just had a good time. Did I think Chris was gay? Absolutely. From the first time I met Chris, me and my ex-wife always thought he was gay, but he was always so fucking nice. I didn't give a shit if he was gay or not. It don't do nothing to me if he's gay or fucking straight. I didn't give 2 shits, but he was always cool with me, man. Me and Chris were good buddies. And, but the Dark Side of the Ring was just like, even the guys that lived in his house never knew he was friends with the Young Bucks. So to me, that kind of was like, how in the hell did he become friends with a Young Buck? And nobody knew about this. And even the guys that lived with him didn't know that. When they were interviewing them, I was kind of dumbfounded. I'm like, why the fuck are they need to be interviewing Jamie Noble? He lived in the fucking house. You know what I mean?
It's really interesting you say that because, I mean, for me, I wouldn't have made the link between Chris Canyon and the Young Bucks. But I'm not in the business or whatever. But like you say, there was probably a shit ton of people who they could have spoken to who knew Chris over a very long time. They had Van on there, didn't they? Obviously, they had him.
Well, yeah, Vandenberg, and he was probably the closest with Chris, and that's why he was on there the most. But, I mean, dude, interview guy. Raven was over there all the time. They interviewed DDP, but DDP is not going to tell you what you want to hear. He's going to tell you what he wants to tell you. Because he's more political. I'm sure he could have fucking told a million different stories, but of course, him and Chris were good buddies, and he wanted to keep it professional and didn't want to say anything. But that's the point of those Dark Side of the Ring. That's why it's called Dark Side of the Ring. People want to hear shit that otherwise they wouldn't have heard. You know what I mean?
So what do you think there was missing quite a bit out then? They kind of.
Yeah, I would say from the inside looking out and watching that documentary, there was, to me, it was kind of just, it was chopped up and it was hard to follow. And especially for me, because I'm thinking, what happened to the middle of the fucking story? It seemed to me like they went from A to Z and missed all kinds of shit.
Did they call you at all about it?
No, never called me at all. But they wanted other guys in the story. Now, this is what I heard too from a good source, that they only pay these guys like $400 to get on that show to tell your stories. And a lot of these guys, they ask like, fuck you, I ain't fucking going on there for $400. I know, I'm sure it was Bo Steiner's were supposed to do something with that one. It might've been that one, but they wanted like $25,000, $50,000 or whatever. They ain't paying that kind of money for an interview. They want to give you $400 and that's it. And would I have done it for $400? Maybe not. It wouldn't have been about the money for me. It would have been about, telling some shit that I've seen over there,
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Ring. It's not called, the light side of the ring, great fucking stories. You know what I mean? It's people want to hear shit that they wouldn't normally hear otherwise.
Well, there's a conspiracy right there with the fact the Bucks were on there and Chris Jericho is doing the voiceover for it. And obviously they're in AEW together.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. And Nick Cage what's his name? Was not Nick Cage. The big dude with the Wolverine locks.
Brian Cage.
Yeah, Brian
yeah.
Cage.
Yeah. I would have never knew they were buddies.
Well, maybe, but this is the thing. Maybe they weren't. Canyon did a match with him. His kind of an independent show or whatever, and I think Canyon probably worked a few matches in some independents, maybe with the Bucks or whatever. But like you say, it was strange that it was like AEW guys who are there now talking about Canyon in his later years.
And nobody that was actually there. Like I said, they could have interviewed Raven. Fucking Scotty Raven was over there all the time. You had guys like Jeff Farmer was over all the time, which was the NWO Sting in Japan.
Yeah.
You had all kinds of dudes you could have fucking, Glacier was over there all the time. Ray Lloyd, Luther Biggs. You had, shit. I know 1,000 guys that were over. I was over there all the time. You know what I mean? I could have told you some shit that I saw, Shane Helms. Why didn't they fucking call him? He lived there and he was good. He did that movie, that wrestling movie with David Arquette. I can't remember the name of it now. Ready to Rumble.
Yeah, I watched it the other day. Jordan, I see as soon as you mentioned Ready to Rumble, I see Jordan's face go because I'm a VHS collector and I bought one the other day and I watched it and I said it's the fucking best wrestling movie ever made. And,
it's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. You would have been around at that time, right? When it was.
Yeah, and Prince IK was trying to get me into that movie. That was when I was in WCW doing the Saturday nights. And I remember we were out in California and he was supposed to try to hook me up and I was going to go talk to one of the producers or something, but it never happened. But that'd have been cool to be in that movie though.
Yeah, because Prince Ikea was in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody in WCW was pretty much in it.
Yeah. Didn't Canyon do a lot of stunts and that for it as well?
Canyon did all the stunts. Yeah. Him and Shane Helms did all the stunts for Dave. Well, David Arquette did a lot of his own stunts, but Shane Helms, did a lot of stuff for David Arquette.
Yeah.
And, the main character, Jimmy, whatever.
Jimmy King.
Canyon did all his stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Jordan's still laughing because I watched it the other day and I said to him, dude, this is a fucking great movie.
Oh, it's an awesome movie. If you like wrestling, you can't not like that movie.
It's okay for me. Like,
I bet Goldberg was in it quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
He was in it there. For me, it's just like that nostalgic time of WCW where we feel it was really building up to be something. But I mean, there was a lot of factors to why it failed, but what do you think, as someone who was there, were the main factors why WCW just wasn't working?
Well, a couple different reasons, probably. Well, talking about the money that was wasted, even when the NWO was big and they were beating Vince in the ratings and stuff, they were fucking throwing money around like it was water. Like, I mean, you're paying Vincent, a black Vincent, Virgil, or what they called it, Vincent, I guess, in the NWO.
Yeah.
You're paying this guy $50,000 a week on a contract, like, and he ain't doing shit. Like, how the hell is this guy making $50,000 a week? Shit like that just blows my mind. And they just, I got there right at the wrong fucking time. Like you said, I was the right guy at the wrong fucking place, time. If I'd have got there a year earlier, I probably would have experienced a lot of that fucking money and, the waste. But to me, it almost seems like somebody, like I said, as far as I knew, Eric Bischoff owned the company. He'd already bought it. That's what I thought. And that's what I think a lot of other guys thought. So you got to ask yourself, who was inside this thing? I think it was sort of an inside job, because all of a sudden you got Eric Bischoff taking over. And like I said, for the most part, I think probably, if not more than half of the roster, thought Eric owned the company. So how do you go from one night Eric owning the company to the next day where Vince buys the company? What the fuck happened in that 24-hour time frame, or whatever? It might have been longer than that, but that's what it seemed like. That how in the hell does that drastic of a change happen where you already, Bischoff's lawyers there, he already commandeered the company, took it over, as far as I knew, 100%, and then boom, he don't own the company anymore. How the hell did Vince get it? You know what I mean?
I cannot wait for you to ask Eric these questions on Get Funk.
It just don't make any sense to me. Like on from where I seen it, you know what I mean?
Well, and Vince bought it for peanuts in the end.
$2 million.
Man, I'm sure there could have been so many other people that could have got that kind of money together. Fucking hell.
Well, I talked to Sean Casey, who played for the Cincinnati Reds. He's the first baseman, and then their pitcher, Danny Graves. I was talking to them about it, and I told them, I said, WCW got bought out by Vince, right? And they're like, no. And they're like, well, how much did he pay for it? I said, $2 million. Danny Graves like, fuck, I should have bought him. I said, damn, I wish he would have. I'd still have a job.
Weren't it supposed to be around 40 million or something before?
Well, that's what it started out with, I guess. And I guess that's what, Eric was working on. And for whatever reason, I heard it was only $2 million, and all they basically bought was the fucking tape library.
It's because I think it was so cheap because they got booted off of TV event. I think they canceled.
Yeah, because you didn't have a TV deal. Yeah. There's no TV deal. All you were buying was the tape library and guys' contracts. People aren't going to buy somebody's contract if they don't have TV to put them on.
Man, that's crazy.
And Vince already had TV, so he wasn't worried about that.
Shifting over to a little bit further on. You're an OG TNA guy.
Yeah, original, yeah.
And Chris is a massive TNA fan. I'm personally, I don't watch it as much as I probably could or should, but Chris is mad TNA. I don't know if you can see the background of Chris's. Oh, it's not even a background. It's just
in front of me. It's my TNA wall in front of me. So I've got this one's different, but it's like because I feel again that TNA, when it started, it had WCW vibes. Like people talk about AEW now having them WCW vibes, and I think people just hunger for that kind of thing again, to go up against Vince and WWF, WWE, or whatever, and TNA in its early days really did have that WCW vibe. I mean, what was it like being there at the beginning?
Well, the only thing that sucked about the TNA at the time, they didn't have television. If you remember, they were doing those every Wednesday. They did a pay-per-view. It was like $10 to get this pay-per-view, and they weren't on TV. So, a lot of people, myself included, I'm not going to pay $10 for a fucking show every Wednesday when I could watch WWE for fucking free, and that is what really killed them, I believe. By the time they start building momentum, then they got TV, but you missed the first couple months of that TNA, man. It was really fucking good. They had Ken Shamrock, you had I don't remember the guy used to be with Alex Wright, the Wall, Jerry Toot. He was one of the main guys.
Yeah.
Malice, his name was, and he was a great friend of mine too. He was actually in the power plant as well. You know, you had here's the deal. Me and Lenny Lane go in there to this thing, right? I'm on the phone with Jerry Jarrett and Jeff Jarrett at least 3-4 days a week talking about our characters and stuff. They wanted me and Lenny Lane to be the top tag team. They were going to put the straps around our waist. You know, we go in there. The first day we go in there, they're having all these meetings with us. You guys are my champions. We did all these fucking promo pictures. You know, me and Lenny Lane are going to be the champions. No two ways about it. That's the way it was. So, you know, they're sitting there promising all this shit. Bang, bang, bang. We're doing this and this. You guys are my number one team. We're building the whole fucking tag team around you and Lenny Lane. And that was just the way it was. So, you know, me and Lenny are pretty excited because we're like, fuck, finally, you know, we're going to get some recognition with our talent to actually do something with it. So the first night it starts out, they want us to do a match with James Storm, Chris Harris that nobody knows. They're trying to build them up. And, you know, like I said before, I don't have trouble doing a job to anybody. I'll put anybody over. As long as the match is good and we both get over, what's the fucking difference? So they come to me and Lenny and say, hey, I need you to put these guys over. And this is what we're thinking. So they had them act like they're outside, just getting out of their cars in their street clothes. Said, hey, you guys got to wrestle tonight. You got to wrestle a tag team. You got to go to the ring right now. The team's waiting on you. So me and Lenny's already in the ring. Here they come. We put them over. Great match from what I remember. Then the next week they start a tag team tournament. So me and Lenny win a couple matches. We actually go over Marcus Bag of Dicks. Me and Lenny beat him and Apollo from Puerto Rico. So, you know, we go over them, which Marcus ain't happy at all about that. Me and Lenny actually argued who was going to pin him because we both wanted to pin him so bad. So actually, then I ended up letting Lenny pin him because Lenny had more of a past with him. So me and Lenny go over to him, and then we get down to the final match in this tag team tournament to win the belts that were promised. Well, guess who they put in the ring with us? AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn. Not even a tag team. They just threw them together that night. And then they had them go over. Like me and Lenny are like, what the fuck is going on? They're not even a team. They told us from the get-go we're going to be the champions. And now we put a team over that's not even a fucking team. So me and Lenny already knew our days were numbered after that shit.
Fucking hell. That's just classic wrestle crap, isn't it?
It is. Same old shit I was used to every fucking time. You know,
those promo shots you took, did you have the titles on you in those promo shots?
No, we never did any titles, but they did everything but that. I don't remember. I don't think we ever did have the titles. But you know, from day one, like I said, they promised us they said they were going to build the whole deal around us and this and that. And then when they did that, we're just like, you know, we're fucked. Our days are numbered. And then they actually weed Lenny out, and then they weeded me out. You know, and that's the time I got hurt too in Finland. So they didn't want me to come back after that.
I remember, I think Macho Man Randy Savage turned up in TNA in the early days.
That was after I left. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He turned up, I think, after, because I remember I used to work at this place and it had like computers in like the lunchroom or whatever. So I had like a internet kind of cafe kind of thing going on. So on my lunch break, I used to go onto the TNA website and there used to be like video clips up of like what was happening. Cause like you say, they never had no TV. They had the pay-per-view once a week or whatever. It was crazy times. And, you know, it's TNA's another company that I think has been mismanaged and, you know, had money leaking here and there, and fucking, you know, they've had Hogan and Bischoff and that there at one point. You know, so the wrestling business is crazy.
Oh yeah. And then, you know, I don't know if you ever remember, I did we called the Funkster gimmick. I don't know if you ever seen me wrestle as the Funkster.
Was that in the WWA?
Yeah, WWA with over in Australia with Andrew McManus. Yeah. So I actually talked to Nash. I was up at one of the shows. Remember Melissa Coates? She was actually
Cheerleader Melissa.
No. Melissa Coates was in Deep South, and then she was actually dating Sabu, and she just passed away a few months ago.
Oh,
she had one leg, the bodybuilding chick.
That's right. Yeah.
So I became friends with Melissa when she was down here in Georgia because she was at Deep South with the WWE. And her gimmick, I think, down there was called like the Bag Lady or something. She was like a homeless bag lady and used to come out there and like jump on people and shit.
Crazy.
But she just wanted to get in the wrestling business, you know. So I was trying to help her out. So we drove up to TNA, one of their pay-per-views, and the Road Dogg, Brian and Billy Gunn. I talked to them, so they met us outside and got us in the building and stuff. And then so then I remember talking to Kevin in there, and he's like, "Hey man, you want to do a gimmick with me and Jay Lethal, because he was doing the Macho Man shit." So they were going to put us together at one point, but nothing ever happened with it. I don't know what Kevin didn't pursue it or whatever. I don't know, but it never happened. But that I was trying to get back into TNA, but I just never could get back in.
Man, that would have been something else. The Funkster and Black Machismo.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like I said, I'm not a massive TNA fan, but I remember the Jay Lethal stuff, and I can imagine, the sort of a rerun of the Mega Powers would have been quite cool to watch.
That would have been amazing.
And that's what Kevin was thinking too. And it might have, as far as entertainment went, and we're both good workers, so it probably might have been a good thing.
So bringing it forward a little bit to kind of nowadays. So do you still watch wrestling? Are you still kind of keeping an eye on things?
I'll catch a show here and there. I don't I'm not like an old wrestling fan like I used to be, where Monday nights I'm like glued to the fucking TV and I gotta have the recorder on, recording everything. I'll catch shows when I can. I'm usually in bed pretty early these days, 8:30, 9 o'clock, because I get up early and stuff, and I train hard and stuff, so I always want to get my sleep. So yeah, I mean, I'll watch it. I'll watch a lot of pay-per-views. Be honest with you, I like watching the women wrestling more than I like the men. Seems like they work harder and better matches to me.
I think we've said that recently, that the level of female wrestling, when we were watching WWE, especially, like the level of the females was like way up here, man. It was great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, even in AEW, that Britt Baker, she's fucking phenomenal. There's a couple other girls, I don't really know their names in AEW, but dude, the women, they fucking put out matches, man. They just seem like Charlotte Flair. To me, she's fucking incredible, man. Like, I could watch her wrestle all fucking day long. And I'm good friends with her brother, David, and that's not really why I like her. I just think she's fucking phenomenal. She outworks everybody as far as I'm concerned.
That's did David train in the power plant with you?
He was down there a little bit, and it's funny because David, man, and I don't blame David at all for this. And I actually respect David, because he knew he wasn't any good. And he'll tell you that. He got thrown into something that, that was handed to him and making good money. Who the fuck wouldn't take that? You know what I mean? But he tried, he's not that great of an athlete. Which I don't know how, because fucking Charlotte's unbelievable. And his dad's Ric Flair. I mean, that speaks for itself. And his brother Reed was a great talent. And he ended up passing away a few years back when he was young, because of his drug addiction. But Reed was incredible. I had Reed on a couple independent shows that I ran, and he was always a good kid, man. I got along with him good, and he was a great worker. But David, it was funny. He used to be in a power play, and he would always, and that's why David always called me Angry Allan, because I kind of am Angry Allan in real life, and that's kind of a good nickname for me, because I can get angry, as you saw in the Marcus Bag of Dicks video where I was yelling at everybody. But I remember David, I'd be walking by the ring in the power plant. There was 4 rings set up, and he'd be in there not doing anything, because nobody really wanted to work with him, because he was fucking terrible. And he was kind of lazy, and he didn't want to do nothing anyway. So I would walk by the ring, and he would always go, "Hey, Funk, get in the ring with me." I'd look at him and go, "Flair, shut your fucking mouth, you piece of shit." I'm like, "You fucking suck." I said, "I would not get in the fucking ring with your ass." I said, "If I was Ric Flair's son, I'd be a fucking millionaire. Go fuck yourself." And I just walked away from him. He's like, "God dang, like, what the fuck?" And then every time he tried to talk to me, I'd cut a promo on him. "Fuck you, Flair. You fucking suck. Go fucking home." Like, I'd always get on him. And he liked that. He liked me for that, because I never fucking tried to baby him,
It's crazy. I was watching another pay-per-view the other day. It was the Rhodes Wild one, where you had Crowbar, David Flair, and obviously Daphne, who's no longer with us as well. You know, so it's funny, you know, this is why we love having you guys on, because we've been fans and we've been watching the on-screen stuff, but to hear this stuff about what goes on backstage it's just amazing. Just, you know, we just want to thank you for spending some time with us. We know that you're busy with your podcast and the stuff you're doing. So do you want to kind of plug your stuff and let us know what you're doing at the minute, Allan?
Yeah. I got actually got 2 shows on it's called the MWA Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance, MWA World Podcast. You can check it. You can get them on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get, you know, your podcast. You can watch it on YouTube live. You can watch it on Twitch live on Thursday nights. My first show is my premiere show, the Get Funked. It's called Get Funked, Not Your Average Wrestling Podcast. And it's actually recorded now, but it's on Tuesdays, 7 p.m. on YouTube. You can watch it. And you can, on the audio versions, you can listen to it on wherever you get podcasts. And then me and Angel Medina, one of the ECW originals, he was in DeBaldi's. Me and him do a show live on Thursday nights. It's on the MWA World Podcast Network. And you can watch that on Twitch and YouTube and then get it audio wherever you get podcasts. It's called the Funkin' Kingpin Show because his name is Angel the Kingpin Medina. And, you know, just the Funkin', you know, Allan Funk, the Funkin' Kingpin Show. So it's actually a pretty good show. We talk about wrestling, but we talk about a bunch of bullshit too. We just get on there and cut up and have fun and talk about whatever we feel like talking about. So, you know, if you're offended easily, I wouldn't listen to the Funkin' Pot or the Funkin' Kingpin podcast. Cause you know, we talked about, getting physical and your prostate exam and all that last Thursday. So, you know, a lot of people might not like shit like that, but you know, it makes for good entertainment. And, you know, sometimes people want to hear, you know, what some of these wrestlers go through in the real life. So that's what we talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure fans of our show would love to hear about that. They love to hear about shit like that. You know, they're not shy at all. So, guys, listen to Allan's, you know, Get Funked and the Kingpin podcast. Yeah, I mean, Jay, you got anything else you want to speak to Allan about?
No,
we've got him here.
I mean, we've taken up a lot of your time already. We'd really just like to say thank you so much for coming on. You know, a WCW, you know, an original might be a good word for it. You know, like you said, ECW original, WCW original, someone that came through the fucking power plant. You know, that. I mean, you could probably write a book on that on its own.
Like, hey, also I want to plug something too. We got a couple. We don't. It's kind of an anonymous group that started this thing, and it's 100% legit. Like they got a hold of me because I got a podcast. They want me to introduce this on my podcast. But I'll say it here first on your podcast because I haven't announced it yet. There's going to be a WCW Power Plant Hall of Fame, and the first 5 nominees were decided by the committee, which I don't know who they are. And it's going to be trainers, which is Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, which has passed away, Jody Hamilton, the assassin, which passed away, Pistol Pez Watley, which was one of the trainers in the Power Plant, which he also passed away. And then you're going to have Mike Winter, that was one of the head trainers down at the Power Plant. So that's the first 5 nominees on the WCW Power Plant Hall of Fame.
Man, you heard it here first from Allan KWEE Funk, the Power Plant Hall of Fame. I mean, like you said earlier, you know, the pure amount of talent that has come out of that place, you know, and the blood, sweat, tears, and often grown men shitting their own pants. It's come out of that place. Just incredible.
That's a shoot, kid.
That's a shoot. So, I mean, we can't thank you enough, Allan. We're really grateful for you spending giving us your time. And we just want all of our listeners, check out Allan's stuff, get on his podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You know, there's not much more we can say, but thank you, man.
Yeah. Also, MWA's got we're going to have a website coming out too pretty soon. We're going to start selling merchandise and stuff on there. So you'll be able to get all the podcasts. And we have a lot of good podcasts on this, not just mine and Angel's.
Yeah.
You got Piers Austin, which is out of Australia. He's got it's called Shooting the Shit. He has a lot of good guests on that show, a lot of Australian talent. He's got a lot of Australia deathmatch wrestlers on there. Then you got the Dead Presidents, which are pretty much independent legends in the States. They got a show, Knights of the Gimmick Table. And then you have Angel Medina has his own show called Killing the Business. So the MWA Podcast Network has a lot of good podcasts, not just the one I do, or the two that I do, the Get Funked and the Funk and Kingpin show, but check out all the podcasts on the MWA Podcast Network, and good things to come from the MWA.
Well, that is, thank you so much, Allan, for coming on. Again, we can't thank you enough for giving up your time to talk to a couple of jabronis from the UK.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys asking me to be on, man. It's always a pleasure when somebody actually wants to interview, man. I'm humbled by that, and I appreciate it.
No worries, man. You put in the work, and we know what it's like to actually be in the ring, but not to the extent that you did. And the amount that you guys put your bodies on the line, and we're just fucking grateful. And it's someone like you who was there in WCW, who we cherish that so much, that company, and the fact that you were there when it was kind of everything was falling around you, but you were still able to have that. We still speak about that match on Greed all the time. The fact that
keep talking about it, man. Pump it up.
It would, because it was the House of Cards was falling down around you, but you just literally would just. That match was just on its own. It's just incredible. So
yeah, man, like I said, man, I appreciate that, man. I really do. It means a lot that people still watch that match to this day, and they always compliment on it. So I'm glad I had that match, and I'm glad people still actually enjoy it. But when you listen to my podcast too, man, I got all these great stories. All the guys from the power plant I've had on my show. I had Sarge on my show. We talk about all that stuff. So if you ever want to check out the old episodes, you can go on YouTube and check them all out. And, there's a lot of great WCW stories on every one of them podcasts.
We'll be there, man. That's going to be listening for me and Jordan. Definitely
we'll definitely make sure those links are in on the YouTube, on our 100% YouTube for this.
Links in the description. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. You guys are, I got the information to follow you. You guys are on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to look you guys up, or send me a link on the Instagram DM. And then that way I can follow you guys, and hopefully you guys can follow us, and, we can support each other,
100%, man. That's what we're doing. We always like to support, because, if it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't even be doing what we're doing. So, definitely share the love, man. So thanks again, Allan, KWEE Funk. Thanks for joining us. And listeners, this was a good one, baby.
Yeah, I got you. If you guys ever need me to help you guys to get somebody, or, if you're thinking about wanting somebody on the show, I can see what I can do to help you guys out. So let me know.
Man, thank you so much, man. Cheers, Allan.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Allan, KWEE Funk, for coming on and chatting to us about WCW, everything else in between, TNA, Dark Side of the Ring, all that amazing stuff that, we literally just heard. Cannot thank him enough for coming on. You can find the links for all of his shows in our descriptions on YouTube, and I'm sure they will. I'll put them up on our socials, which you will find underneath us if you're looking at the video.
Yeah,
or you already know where they are. It's at Chat Grapple Pops for pretty much everything.
Trust me, baby. Y'all know. So, y'all done been here before.
As our wonderful host with the most, the best Chris in all Christmas. I'm chatting shit.
Nearly there, bruv. It's all right. Let's get past Halloween first.
The best Chris in all of wrestling podcasts. There it is. I said it without fucking up. Like he says, slap those bells, hit those buttons, do what you got to do.
Do it.
Make sure you can hear us straight away. You don't want to miss this. You don't want to miss our stuff. And we love you for it.
We do, man. And we can't thank our listeners enough. And, we are constantly striving for more content. We are constantly putting in the work, chatting to these guys. We are constantly chatting to wrestlers all over the world, trying to get them on this podcast, which is Chat Grapple and Cheap Pops. We are also going to be doing some more reviews. We've got them coming up. We've got some WCW shows that we're looking at right now, and it seems like we are a WCW podcast right now. But we've had so many guys on from WCW. But we've also had your WWE guys, your WWF guys. We've had, let's not forget, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, Santino Marella. We have had, we've had everyone. We've had your Chris Hamricks. We've had Sonny Ono. We've had, Alex Wright was our most recent one. And now we've just signed off with Allan KWEE Funk. and we're just going to keep going. We've got more shit in the pipeline. Not to forget at all our UK wrestling interviews that we've had with Dean Ayas, the Twisted Genius. We've got another one coming up with someone who was integral in the British wrestling industry. So fuck, man, I can't gas up the podcast any more than I just have.
We can, because what we can do is we can end this in the most special of ways. As always, we thank zenpop.jp for looking out for us, looking after us. You know,
That's right.
$5 off. Remember, $5 off if you use the special code GRAPPLE.
That's right.
And
Link in the description.
Worldwide, baby.
That's
Anywhere
right.
you want, they will send you some of those sweets, some ramen if you're interested, or even stationery.
Yeah.
So thank you so much to Zenpop, and thank you so much to our other friends, Chris, which I'm sure you'd like to talk about.
Our other friends who are UK exclusive ones only. Sorry, guys, in America, you can't be getting this, but it is the Bubble Panda. And Jordan, my fantastic co-host, is holding up his box right there, bringing the bubbles to you, thebubblepanda.com. Get on there, order your bubble tea boxes so you can make them at home. They've got the tropical boxes. They're going to have some winter warmer boxes, which are coming soon, that I'm really looking forward to, because they've got like the chocolate bobas and the fucking, oh man, I'm just creaming my pants thinking about that already. So get on that. Thanks again to thebubblepanda.com and zenpop.jp.
Thank you so much to those guys for looking after us and for being a part of this. Thank you to everyone listening. Thank you to everyone that's still watching. You know, shout out to Chris, as it was his birthday earlier in the week. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about his wild week with the parties with Marty Jannetty, the parties with, you know, Arn Anderson, Click Click. We'll talk about all of that stuff next week when, you know, or in a review episode real soon.
That's right.
Thank you very much for sticking around. We love you all. Take care, everyone.